Friday he was going to be here. We're not ready yet. Okay, we will call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Show Low for March 22nd. Roll call shows Commissioners Clark and Berry excused. The rest of the commissioners are present. And I will do the invocation this evening, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Commissioner Behrens. Will you all please rise? Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance this evening as we work through some issues that are of particular importance to some specific individuals, and we want to make sure that we give adequate consideration to them and also give service to the rest of the members of the community. So we ask for your guidance along those lines. We further would ask that you do everything within your power to end the madness that continued today in Europe and likely will try to continue elsewhere. We ask for your help in protecting all of the people that happen to be in this set of circumstances. We, as always, ask that you keep an eye on our military families, both at home and abroad, and keep them safe. We ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, we have no old business this evening, so we will proceed directly to the new business items on the agenda. The first of which is consideration of an extension of conditional use permit 602-04-166 submitted by Shireen Cayley to allow a commercial plant nursery located at 1640 East Oliver Place, that being known also as Assessor's Parcel Number 210-26-025. Ms. Factelcotter.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. At its regular meeting of March 25th, 2014, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved CUP 602-04-166 submitted by Shireen Cayley to allow commercial plant nursery located at 1640 East Oliver Place, more particularly described as APN 210-26025. The applicant previously submitted a request for a one-year extension of the CUP in March of 2015. At its regular meeting of April 14th, 2015, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved this request. According to City Code Section 5132I2, all CUPs are valid if the project is started within 12 months of CUP approval and completed within 18 months of CUP approval, unless these time limits are extended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. A letter from the applicant is attached in which the applicant has requested an additional extension of the CUP due to additional planning related to the project. Staff recommends granting an extension of the CUP for a time period of 6 months, with all previous conditions of approval, copy attached, to remain in effect.
Okay, questions for staff? Ma'am?
One quick one. This happens to us occasionally, correct? I mean, this is kind of a standard type item. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Correct. The commission has granted approvals for extensions in the past. Generally, it just has to do with funding in a lot of cases. In this case, the applicant is extremely close to beginning construction. We've actually met with the applicant as well as her contractor. We held what's called a pre-construction meeting to go over the requirements for construction, parking, landscaping, all of those types of things. They've indicated that they are very close to submitting. They're just not quite there yet and would not meet the time period as previously stipulated. So.
Very good, thank you.
Anything further? I have a quick question. I'm sorry, go
Bishop
ahead.
has a question.
Don't worry, I snuck it in right before you turned your, or after you turned your head. Just a question for staff, mostly out of curiosity. Do we ask the applicant to attend the meeting when there is a request to extend? Because at this meeting and both the last meeting in January, we didn't have the applicant here for an extension.
We do require that the applicant be here for the initial application. It's certainly within the purview of the commission to request that the applicant be available for subsequent meetings. However, because it's just an extension of what was previously approved with no recommended changes, it's our opinion that unless the commission feels that they would like to see the applicant, it's not necessary for them to be here.
I was just curious because if there were questions for the applicant, if they were not here, it could slow down the process.
Right. You guys would have to continue it to the next meeting and request their presence.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize, Commissioner Bishop, for sort of cutting you off there.
Okay.
I have a quick question, and it's just procedural, I guess. Ms. Cayley's letter asked for 2 months, and we're giving her 6 months. And is that just sort of the standard extension?
There really is no standard extension. In this case, we went ahead and went with 6 months. That's a little bit easier for the mind to just process 6 months versus 2. Again, we feel that she's very close, but we would hate to be back here in 7 weeks and saying, we're really, really close this time.
I hear
We
you.
just need a little more time. So we
Okay.
padded it a little bit.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Adams.
Just one question, kind of goes along with yours. I mean, she's extended already, this is the second time. Is there a limit to how many times she can extend? And if so, I mean, it just seems I don't want to be back here again, if she just keeps extending, and we're a couple of years down the road. What's the protocol for that?
Again, that's really up to the commission. At tonight's meeting, you could say, we will grant no further extensions, and if she's not able to meet this time, then she would have to come back and reapply for a new conditional use permit if she chose to move forward in the future. That's certainly, again, an option for the commission. That's one of the reasons why we said 6 months instead of 2. Hopefully give everybody a little bit more time to get started on the project.
Is that an issue which you would like to consider?
I kind of feel that we maybe need to put a time on it. I don't want to be doing this every 6 months or once a year. It seems to be maybe a pattern that
Okay.
I think we should.
We will hold that in abeyance momentarily anyway. there is no applicant, so no questions for the applicant. So we'll open it for questions from any member of the public who might have input. And seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for a motion. Commissioner Bishop.
I move to approve the extension of the current CUP 602-04-166 submitted by Shireen Cayley to allow a commercial plant nursery located at 1640 East Oliver Place, that being APN 210-26-025 for a time period of 6 months, subject to all other provisions or previous conditions of approval.
And
Second.
just a second, did that address your concern?
Yeah, I just, yes, sir. Commissioner did.
Okay. So you have the motion, okay, and we have a second, correct? All right. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries unanimously, which tonight is 5-0. So, and that leads us to the second item on the agenda, which is consideration of conditional use permit 602-04-187, submitted by Shane Hall of ST Hall Investments to allow for rehabilitation housing located at 1201 East Cooley, that being assessor's parcel numbers 210-27-001A, 002B, 003C, 004D, 005E, 006F, 007G, 008H, 009I, and 010J. Ms. Fechtelkotter.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners.
Chairman, I have a conflict. I've been contacted to do some work on this project, so.
Okay, I appreciate you coming forward with that. Thanks very much. You may be excused, and we'll holler at you when we're coming back. Okay.
Subject property is located within the DC Downtown Commercial Zoning District. The use of property within the DC zoning district for apartments requires a conditional use permit. The subject property is currently comprised of 10 office suites. The applicant is requesting to convert one office suite to an apartment at this time, with the possibility of converting 3 additional office suites to apartments in the future. Based on discussions with the applicant as well as the prospective tenant, the purpose of these apartments is to provide transitional housing as a sober living facility. The tenants of the building would be overseen by Blue Vase Recovery Center. The Blue Vase Recovery Center currently occupies space on the subject property for use as offices and counseling for addiction recovery. Shane Hall of ST Hall Investments has submitted a conditional use permit or CUP application to allow residential use as 1201 East Cooley, more particularly described as APN numbers 210-27001A, 002B, 003C, 004D, 005E, 006F, 007G, 008H, 009I, and 010J. The subject property is located within the DC Downtown Commercial Zoning District. Section 15158 of City Code outlines the development standards for the DC zoning district. The use of property within the DC zoning district for multiple family dwellings is allowed through a conditional use permit. Nursing homes are also listed as a conditional use within the DC zoning district. According to the application, this project will be used as rehabilitative housing. Its proposed use will also satisfy a community need to provide a temporary structured environment to assist individuals participating in a voluntary program to recover from alcohol and drug dependency. Currently, the Blue Vase Recovery Center is occupying a large portion of the subject property. The Recovery Center provides counseling and training to recovering drug and alcohol addicts. The proposed housing would be utilized as a transitional housing for individuals who've completed the recovery program. A letter from Blue Vase outlining the proposed use is included, which I'll read. It says, "We are excited to have the opportunity to share our vision of residential living for those individuals who have completed a 6-month recovery program. Our goal and mission is to support those individuals who have graduated and maintain good standings with Blue Vase Recovery Center. As previously indicated, we want to add support and help to those transitioning out of our program. Our goal is to provide our clients with a clean and safe environment here in Show Low where they can live and save money. BVRC will support and help these individuals to secure employment and remain sober while in the transitional living. They will be responsible for living by the same requirements they did while in our homes. Part of the transitional program will allow them to continue to give back hours of service to the community. They will abide by and live according to the rules governed by BVRC. They will continue to have random drug testing, room checks, and agree to teach at the facility while in the housing. The length of stay will be from 1 month to no more than 90 days. This will provide them ample time to get on their feet and find security. Even after leaving the transitional housing, they will utilize BVRC as a means of recovery. This housing project is important to our clients. We strive to provide them with the best opportunity for success. The extra 1 to 3 months will ensure that they have received the necessary time they need to truly recover. This idea is groundbreaking and different than other recovery centers in the nation. We are excited to offer it here to our Show Low neighbors. Respectfully, Brock Bevel." Also included is a copy of the contract outlining the expectations for the participants of the program, which I'll also read. "I understand that this is a transitional living. I understand that I live and can live in the facility as long as I agree and follow the listed rules. 1, I agree to attend 1 AA/NA meeting a day. 2, I agree to gain and maintain meaningful employment. 3, I agree that no alcohol or drugs will be brought into the facility. 4, I agree to remain alcohol and drug-free. 5, I agree that I will have no interaction with the police department. 6, I agree to promote Blue Vase Recovery Center to other clients, community, and self. 7, I agree to keep the facility room clean and report any damage to the living quarter. 8, I agree to teach 4 hours a month to maintain residency at the BVRC Transitional Living. 9, I agree that the transitional living is temporary and will be two months unless otherwise agreed upon. 10, I agree to random room searches and drug and alcohol testing. If you refuse to submit, you will immediately be removed from the transitional living. 11, no overnight visitors are allowed. 12, curfew will be at 10:30. 13, no current CTs will be allowed in the bedrooms. 14, keep music and noise at respectful noise. You're in a business complex. 15, CTs that have been removed from the program are not allowed in the building. 16, conflict with other CTs will not be tolerated. If it continues, we will be asked to leave. 17, the facility is a conflict-free zone. And 18, CT agrees to pay $150 a month. This includes rent and utilities. Failure to meet the above terms of contract will result in immediate removal from the program. My signature below certifies that I've read the above living terms and agree to the conditions of Blue Vase Recovery Center Transitional Living. A check with the police department indicates that 2 calls for service have been received to this address since receiving a business license in November of 2014. 1 call was regarding a door that had been left open, and the second call was related to a report of domestic violence that took place at a separate location but was reported from the subject property. At this point, 1 apartment containing a restroom, kitchen, and 4 sleeping rooms is proposed for Suite H. It has been indicated that 1 person would utilize each sleeping room. The applicant has indicated that additional apartments may be added at a future date in Suites G through J. These suites are located in the southern portion of the subject property. The current zoning of the surrounding properties includes to the north, south, east, and west, DC, which again is downtown commercial. The land uses of the surrounding properties to the north, south, east, and west is also all commercial. Staff sent transmittal memos to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include: from the Timber Mesa Fire District, depending on the occupancy type, a sprinkler system may be required. The property was posted and letters were sent to all property owners within 300 feet. Staff received several phone calls from nearby property owners related to the concerns with this request. Since preparation of the staff summary report, 2 letters were received from neighboring property owners, which outlined similar concerns which were expressed in the phone calls received as well, and I will read those 2 letters. The property at 1201 East Cooley Street has been zoned for commercial use since initial construction. With the exception of the LDS Church, it is surrounded by commercial property. Many of the other properties have been updated on regular basis and all are occupied. This property has been neglected over the years and therefore is not attracting renters. Converting this property into low-cost residential sober living will require a sizable investment. Perhaps these investment dollars should be utilized to update this commercial property to attract business clients and blend in with the business community. I purchased my property in 1984, and I do not believe that any other building in this commercial area has had a zoning change to residential, let alone sober residential. There's a rented space in this building that houses a drug alcohol-related classes. I believe that the majority of the attendees are court-ordered. At any given time of the day, there are about 10 people gathered in the parking lot smoking cigarettes and visiting. The Cattleman Steakhouse leases my property and has many young women employed. Many of these employees feel uneasy and gawked at when entering the restaurant. If this property was rezoned to residential sober housing, 35 plus employees would have to deal with potential built-in problems, not only in the daytime, but when they leave the restaurant between 9 and 11 p.m., none of which is fair to the property owner, the restaurant owners, or their employees. I don't understand why the city of Show Low would even entertain such a proposal to rezone to sober living houses when there has been a liquor license on my property since the late 1940s. This license also includes liquor-to-go sales, and these options should not be made so readily available to people with existing alcohol abuse problems. I do not appreciate receiving this request less than a week before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Due to medical reasons, I cannot visit the higher elevations anymore. Due to short notice, the owners of Cattleman Steakhouse will be out of town and also unable to attend this meeting. They have a long-term lease on my property and have strong opinions about the potential rezoning. Do we really want sober living residential housing within 300 or 400 feet from Show Low's main intersection and in the middle of Show Low's commercial district? Is the city of Show Low prepared to set a precedent that if a property is neglected, they will allow a shabby property to be rezoned to a less desirable category instead of encouraging the property owner to make necessary changes within the existing zoning code? Sincerely, Geraldine A. Dublin. Since 1980, my family has owned the office building located at 1141 East Cooley in Show Low. Our office building is located next door to the proposed sober living housing facility. We are strongly opposed to the granting of a conditional use permit on the subject property. Many years ago, we participated in the Show Low Main Street Association. The association represented an effort by city government and property owners to upgrade the center of Show Low to reduce blight and to create an attractive city center. The objective was to create a sense of place. As a result, the streetscape was improved and public art was installed. The city started having events in the area. New government buildings were constructed, and property owners were encouraged to upgrade and maintain their properties. For several years, we have worked to maintain our property. While several tenants have moved to new buildings outside of the city center, it is notable that recently we've seen an uptick in the number of quality tenants who are interested in our building. We hope to continue to increase the number of professionals who office with us. The presence of a residence for recovering addicts would have a substantial negative impact on our ability to attract professionals. As a result, the value of our property would be substantially reduced. Most of us who own a property in the area are longtime owners who have worked hard to maintain and upgrade our properties, and it is not right to take one of the most poorly maintained properties and reward that owner with a conditional use permit. Finally, the proposed location is not suitable for recovering addict housing. Several bars are located within walking distance. The street is a commercial street, not a residential neighborhood. The zoning is in place for a reason. That reason is to maintain the integrity of the area and support appropriate redevelopment. In that way, property values are enhanced, further improvements are made, and the whole Show Low area benefits. Respectfully, Jan Warren, Cattrus. After reviewing the standards for review, the zoning ordinance, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Show Low general plan, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve conditional use permit 602-04-187 submitted by Shane Hall of ST Hall Investments LLC to allow rehabilitation housing at 1201 East Cooley, that being APN numbers 210-27001A, 002B, 003C, 004D, 005E, 006F, 007G, 008H, 009I, and 010J, subject to the following conditions. 1, all development shall comply with applicable federal, state, and local regulations. 2, a building permit shall be obtained for the conversion of any suite to residential use. A certificate of occupancy shall be issued prior to residential use. Parking lot lighting meeting the requirements of section 15-146C2H shall be installed prior to a certificate of occupancy being granted for residential use. 4, this conditional use permit is for the conversion of Suite H only. Any additional residential units will require an amendment of this conditional use permit. 5, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall review this conditional use permit 6 and 12 months from the date of residential occupancy to determine that the use is compatible with the neighborhood. If at any time it is determined that the use is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood, the Commission may revoke this conditional use permit. 6, all occupants shall comply with the rules provided by the Blue Vase Recovery Center and included as a part of this packet. And 7, the applicant shall be responsible for ensuring that the existing parking lot and landscaping are maintained in accordance with city code.
Well done, ma'am. Thank you for that. Okay, we will start with questions for staff from the commission, and I will start first, if I may. My first question is directed to our city attorney. I know Commissioner Behrens and I, as real estate professionals, understand the bulk of the fair housing issues that are related to residential properties, but I don't do commercial real estate, so I'm wondering if we have the same set of conditions in place that need to be considered for this particular situation.
In short, the answer would be yes. The Federal Fair Housing Act applies to residential areas that are zoned, but also those that are of a mixed use as well. Downtown commercial is a mixed residential commercial use, so the same laws and standards apply. And as we discussed, I think it was a couple months ago, we went through the Federal Fair Housing Act, which was enacted in 1968. And then with the amendments in 1988, it applies to those that are handicapped or disabled. There's court decisions that have indicated that those are recovering from substance abuse and those that are mentally ill are disabled individuals. So we cannot ban or discriminate against those that are disabled. We can do certain conditions that we would do for anyone else that came into the neighborhood in such a way. And I think that the staff recommendations are consistent with that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bishop first, and then Vice Chair Robertson.
My questions for Director Turkaskis. I did review the general plan regarding this issue, and I agree that doesn't seem to be any conflicts, but I know a few years ago, the city engaged with some consultants for Show Low Main Street and looking to revise the downtown area. I couldn't find a lot of information on that, but do you know, based on their recommendations, and if the city council accepted those, is this type of use in conjunction with what they made recommendations for to the city?
The plan that you're referring to is the Tahito plan. It was performed by, I believe, University of Arizona students. And as part of that plan, they did kind of a study of the downtown area, different types of uses that may be recommended, compatible with the downtown recommendations to move forward, that type of thing. Part of what they recommended as part of their plan is that the downtown be used as a mixed-use type designation, meaning, yeah, you've got commercial, but you also have some residential component as part of that. I think what everybody envisioned or would like to see is something similar to what you see in downtown Prescott, you know, where you've got the 2 or the 3-story buildings that occupy an entire block with different buildings taking up a portion of that block. So as you look down, this one's a little bit different than the one right next to it, but in all practicality, they appear to be one building. And as part of that, the ground floors would be commercial, you know, restaurants, businesses, offices, that type of thing, retail, and that the second floor be utilized as either additional professional type offices or in some cases apartments. Our downtown commercial zoning district allows, through a conditional use permit, to have residential apartments in the downtown zoning district. We also make provision for existing residences that were already here, predating our zoning. That's why you see some single-family homes scattered throughout. In this case, as Mr. Brown explained, because we allow through a conditional use permit apartments, we have to look at all requests for apartments under the same umbrella.
Okay.
We can't say to one person, we don't like, and this is generalization of fair housing, we don't like what color skin you have, therefore we're going to tell you no. That's blatant discrimination. I think everybody would agree on that. The same goes for gender. We can't tell somebody, well, we don't like that you're one or the other, we're not going to let you come in here. There's a whole list of things that fall under that. In this case, disability falls under the fair housing. We could not say to somebody who's in a wheelchair, for example, you're disabled, you're in a wheelchair, we don't want you here. The courts have ruled that the definition of disability includes those who are recovering from drug and alcohol addiction. So from a disability standpoint, they fit in the same category as somebody who's in a wheelchair. I guess in the long roundabout way, this does meet the zoning, it does meet the general plan, it does meet the Tahito group. We just need to be careful that anytime we review for apartments or any type of housing, that we make sure that we are following those federal fair housing laws that are given to us. And so that's why you see the staff recommendations that are before you this evening.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff? Commissioner Robertson.
I just wanted to ask, or just clarify, we will be doing absolutely no rezoning of this property. This property is zoned the way it is, and it can house either residential or commercial.
The property is zoned DC, downtown commercial. The proposal that is before you this evening would not change that zoning. It would still be DC. The properties around it would still be the DC. What the request is this evening is to allow for a conditional use permit as outlined in the DC zone to allow an apartment.
Further questions for staff? Excuse me, I have one more. I gather that since we have under staff recommendations, the ability or the mandate to review after 6 months, that we would be within our rights were anything to transpire different from what has been presented or what will be presented by the applicants. We would have the right to be able to revoke that permit for violations of their trust, as it were.
Right, for violations of the conditional uses that you put in there.
Right, and Mr. Chair, I'll kind of go through, section 15132 of our code is what governs conditional use permits. And as part of that, it states the standards for reviewing conditional use permits, and this is in section E. And it says all conditional use permits shall be evaluated for the following standards. Number one, the application shall be consistent with and conforms to the general plan and any other adopted plans. I think Mr. Bishop's question addresses that. Number two, there shall be no significant adverse or intrusive effect upon property within 300 feet of the external boundaries of the subject property as a result of the proposed use. And three, the proposed change would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the persons or property in the surrounding area, nor to the community in general. At this point, we don't have any data that suggests that this application meets those criteria found in number two or number three. We do have some letters that outline concerns from neighboring property owners. But at this point, we don't have anything that says, concretely that, yeah, if this happens, then that will happen. We understand that there are concerns from adjacent property owners and area property owners. It's very rare that the commission sees staff make a recommendation that's worded in such a way that we will review this in 6 months and we'll review it again in 12 months. And we reiterate that if the conditional use permit is found in violation, then it can be revoked. If at any time it is found that there is a significant adverse or intrusive effect upon the neighbors or the property in general around there, the commission can review this and revoke it. That would be the same for any conditional use permit. It's not specific just to this one. Things that the commission, could look to as far as adverse or intrusive effects. We contacted the police department. We found that there's been 2 calls for service. One was an unlocked door, and one was a report for domestic violence that took place at some other location and actually was just reported from this spot. Much the same as if somebody showed up to my job and we called in a report from there. That's kind of the situation. However, if in the future the property owners within the area see, man, I just had a break-in, for example, and it happens to be the guy who lives in that apartment, and we're seeing a pattern of that, that then could be considered an adverse or an intrusive effect upon the neighboring property owners. So things along those lines would be what the commission could look at to say, I'm sorry, but based on this section of code, you are having an adverse or an intrusive impact, we can revoke your conditional use permit. And again, that is consistent with any conditional use permit that is granted.
Okay. There is each, let's say, intrusive event would need to be looked at individually. to determine whether or not there was grounds to revoke the conditional use permit. It wouldn't be let's just say, I don't know, loud noise a month in or something like that.
Agreed. The commission, in its determination, would have to look at those and say, is this truly an adverse impact? Is the neighbor coming to us and saying, every night this is happening over and over and over, and I've called the police over and over and over? Or is it the case of, one night something happened and that was it? The wording is significant, adverse, or intrusive.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Roberts.
In general, from any research that I've done, usually these types of facilities are well-maintained. No, I'm not saying that this one will be, but the question I have is, do we have any evidence that you can look at, a pattern that maybe from other cities where these types of facilities are? Do we have any of these facilities currently?
we have several that are operated by the Blue Vase Recovery Center. They are within existing residential neighborhoods. To date, we had received phone calls of concern from one neighborhood. We met with those neighbors. The applicant or the representative from Blue Vase also agreed to meet with those neighbors. I believe that was a couple months ago. We have not received any phone calls or anything related to that property since he's met with the neighbors. So we do not have any record of anyone with complaints or concerns about those other than that one neighborhood, and we have not heard from them since.
Very good, thank you.
The developer is going to be required when he is remodeling the one unit, but is he going to be required to do any improvement to the rest of the building?
To the property itself, yes. He will be required to install parking lot lighting. At this point, there's one light that is there at the subject property. It's likely that more lights will have to be installed to meet our parking lot lighting requirements. There's some issue with landscaping that is already there. It appears to be very happy where it's at. It needs to be trimmed back in some locations. And then the parking lot itself needs to be looked at, probably resurfaced. And those are all reflected in staff recommendations.
Okay.
Further questions for staff? Do we have questions for the applicant? Will the applicant please come forward and state their name and address for the record?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you have two representatives here this evening. You have the property owner,
Okay,
Mr. Hall, Mr. Shane Hall. You also have the individual who operates the Blue Vase Recovery Center, Mr. Brock Bevel, and both of those are here this evening and available to answer questions.
okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Shane Hall. This is Brock Bevel with Blue Vase.
Good evening.
Evening.
So I have
Commissioner
a couple-
Bishop.
I do have a couple of questions, thank you. So I wonder, I'd have visited the property, and I know who some of the tenants are, but can you describe who all the tenants are at the existing location? And if you don't want to name the businesses, just the types of businesses?
There's a janitorial service, a restaurant, a guitar, retail sales, and he gives guitar lessons. We have the SBA there with an office and a exterminating company, and then Blue Vase. So Blue Vase holds currently 4 suites, 4 out of the 10 suites.
Okay, thank you. And is the guitar business, is that located in G?
It is.
Okay. Is anyone currently staying at the property overnight?
No.
To your knowledge? No? Okay. My other questions would be for Mr. Bevel. Could you share what your primary factors are for establishing one of these facilities as far as what things you consider before making a decision to put one of your facilities in a specific location?
Absolutely. He indicated before, we have 4 other homes in Show Low. Most people don't know we're even here because we don't have any problems with the police. We work really well with the police department. I'm actually a retired police officer, so when we came up here, we liked the area. I've been here for 10 years. And so we currently have 17 clients in the program. We started as a men and women program. Now we're realizing that it's more difficult to house them both, so we're just going to utilize the men. Our goal is once they complete a 6-month program, then those who want to stay in the area, and the reason for that is we have clients from Louisiana, we have one from Florida, Phoenix. So if they desire to stay in the area and continue to contribute to the area, we want to create them a transitional housing to where they can leave the program, but still receive therapy, still come back and teach. We utilize the 12 steps, and the 12 steps indicates they need to come back and give back to those who have helped them. So what their goal would be is to live in this transitional living for 1 to 3 months, try to save some money for a down payment on a car, housing, some court costs, get their license back, whatever it may be. So when they exit the program, they're running.
Okay.
So that would be the reason to have them close. If they don't leave the community, is they're still reliable. They're still being watched over.
Another question I have too, are they attending classes on site there, or are they going to the fellowship hall a little bit down the road there?
They definitely go to the fellowship hall. They go to 1 AA meeting a day. Some go to more if they want more time, but we have a licensed therapist that comes in and meets with them Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so it's a 6-phase program. So there's 6 months. So as the months go on, we try to get them back in the community working. So if they're in phase 4 and 5, then they're out and working. Or we have 2 that have been placed at Sears. We have 7 people that have already graduated, so they have full-time jobs. And so as phase 1, 2, and 3, they get 30 hours of therapy a week. So they're just inundated. They're in classroom all day trying to just restructure their life.
Right. And I have one other question. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this. The one concern I have isn't for a public concern, but more for the people who are going to reside there. There are 2 restaurants there that have liquor licenses. Are you guys concerned at all with any temptation factors or putting them in a facility that is really, really close to a place where you can hop on a bar stool and grab a drink?
It's an awesome question. Is it a concern of ours? Absolutely. But during the program, hopefully we've given them enough fortitude that they've worked through their addiction to that's no longer a problem. One of the components is we try to put them in the community as quick as possible. I don't know if you read the paper this week. We did some work with Sears where we built a shed at the community garden. We had 17 guys there helping out. So we really want them back in the community as quick as possible. So they are being faced with drugs. I mean, we have guys going to Circle K. You have Summer's Place right there where they used to frequent. I mean, so it's everywhere. So they're inundated with it. And we create a support team for them that they can go to. So their relapse, we do the best we can to help them out. But down the road, we've only been here a year. We've been in operation in Show Low for 1 year. Last year at this time we started. So we've lost some individuals along the way that have desired to go back to using, and they're not in the program.
Okay.
So those who have stayed this far are doing a great job.
Great.
Can I interject for a minute while you organize your thought? Along those same lines, do you have a sense of what the recidivism rate is in your group?
We're doing really well. I mean, across the nation, it's horrible for those who attend a rehab. But those who we can keep in the area and keep around us and that immediately receive jobs, have an income, go back to their families, we're losing about 5% of them, which is pretty good. The rest have the 7 that have already gone through it have not relapsed. And most of you people know who they are if I told you the names, but they're doing really good. So I don't have the data yet. I can't wait to get it after a couple of years. I'd like to share it with you, but I feel like we're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Roberts.
Like most apartment complexes or housing, people will, go outside, they'll smoke, have barbecues or hang out, that kind of thing. This area doesn't really lend itself to having that kind of, and I know that the gentleman in this program, usually a maximum of 3 months is what I was reading.
Stay in that transition,
in
right?
that
That would be the
transition.
max.
Yeah. So is there anything set up for that? Or are there any rules that are set up for that?
For them being in there?
No, to have outdoor activities like smoking outside or barbecuing or, things like that.
That's a really good question. Basically, what our intentions are, they'll still come with us to do afternoon activities. They'll still attend with us. From 3:30 to 7 o'clock, we're always together as a group. So like right now, they're having an Uno tournament, and I'm missing it, but I'm just playing. But yeah, that we do want them with us as much as possible to continue what they're doing. Smoking, it seems like every single individual we have in the program smokes. We are definitely transitioning them to their vapors. I know it's crazy, but they all want to go to that. And so we are definitely reducing the smoking, but I mean, I don't know how to curtail that. They understand it's a business complex. They're not going to smoke inside, so they go outside and they try to be good. They have a great relationship with the tenants within this little block in our group, and we try to keep them out of the road, and we try to keep them as minimal as possible. When you get 17, 18 people, that's a lot of bodies.
Right.
So, but those who would live in there would be 4 people, so they wouldn't be very visible outside, And they're working full-time jobs, so they're not getting home till 6, 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
Further questions for the applicant?
Will there be anybody there in the evening for supervision, or will they be on their own, like from 7 until the following morning?
When they go in there, they're now 7, 8, 9 months sober. So we do the room checks. My brother and I own the company, so we do all the room checks every night. We go to all the guys, we check in. The goal is that they don't want to use, but we definitely keep UA in them. If they come back dirty on a UA 7 months down the road, they're kicked out. So we have a very, very high standard, and I think that's why they're doing so well, is because they understand that they have to raise their bar as well. So we'll be there. Yes, ma'am, to answer your question.
And just for point of clarification, there's references in the application for CT. What is CT?
It's client. CT
Okay,
just
okay,
represents
all
client.
right, thank you. I just thought maybe it was an acronym for something. All right, thank you. Further questions for the applicant?
No, you answered all my questions, and I appreciate what you do for your residents.
Appreciate you.
Okay, we'll open it up now for comment from the public. Anyone wishing to address the commission should come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Jan Kacharis, and my family owns a property next door at 1141 East Cooley, and has since it was built. I'm conflicted because we've been here since the Main Street Association, and we worked to improve the value of our property. And as a real estate person, there are all sorts of aspirational reasons to do whatever. But as a real estate person, there's no way in the world that this use won't have a negative effect on the value of our property. It will. Our tenants are concerned. We already lost a CPA who was concerned about the counseling that, even just daytime counseling. So, we've tried to be supportive of all kinds of professional uses. The conditional use permit says, conditional use permit may be permitted if the use can be designated and developed in a manner and I quote, "which assures maximum compatibility with adjoining uses." The adjoining uses are all commercial. I remember when the University of Arizona students came in and did the, and they were looking at a quote mixed-use development. I don't think the aspirational idea of having apartments upstairs and retail downstairs is compatible with a prison, for example. People live in a prison, it doesn't ensure or require that you accept a conditional use permit because the overall plan says mixed use might be nice. We worked with the public art, we made donations. So I think it's unrealistic also to assume that how many indiscretions will it take? Will it take calling 25 times? Will it take calling 35 times? I mean, we've owned properties next door to this kind of a situation before. And, the government thinks, well, this is really a good thing. And this gentleman has 1 year. He's been here 1 year. And you ask the recidivism, we all know what recidivism happens with addicts. I mean, it's a difficult situation. It's a hard problem to solve in a community, and housing them next to bars you talked about the smoking. We've already got cigarette butts all over our parking lot, which we have to have our janitor pick up every day. And, I think we're being a little bit naive if we think that, first of all, that there aren't going to be problems. And am I in a position where I have to have my tenants call every time there's a problem? I think a home like this, and you take the property, they're saying there are going to be 4 residents. Well, that's the first apartment. Then there are going to be 3 more. So is that 16 residents? And he said, well, they had men, but they had women, and gee, that was a problem. Well, what a shocker. I've raised children. It isn't as simple as it ever sounds. Certainly, this particular population isn't as simple as it sounds. We'd love for them all to be clean, and we'd love for our children to all grow up perfect. But I think it isn't fair to the neighborhood, to the landowners in the area, to have their property values depressed even farther. Our property isn't worth what it was worth 20 years ago. Show Low hasn't developed the way we hoped. The commercial area has lagged. And honestly, there aren't that many jobs, and we'd like to see Show Low do better. We'd like to see it become more like you mentioned Prescott, the way it looks. We have some property there, and you get a vibe. And I think, you want Show Low to have some vibe and a sense of place. And the commercial district downtown where we had transients living in our public restroom here. We had to lock our bathroom, and, our tenants were afraid, and we've worked hard to, combat that. So I think we really need to think about whether a man with a 1-year track record, and he obviously has a good heart. He's probably doing a great job, but is this the right location for a residential facility for recovering addicts? I think they'd be better off somewhere where they can be outside. Where are they going to be outside? In our parking lot? Or are they going to stand out? Are they going to barbecue in their parking lot? It just isn't a residential neighborhood. Are they going to hang out at McDonald's? Anyway, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I know it's a tough question. The man is obviously trying to do the right thing. I just think it's the wrong location. And certainly it's the wrong location for us. Do you have any questions?
So, yes, I'm going to ask you a very pointed question.
Sure.
but it's well-intended, I assure you.
No, sure.
And that question would be, would you have the same concerns if these apartments, as presented, were occupied by, call them what you want to call them, normal citizens? Let me get more specific. Is your concern the fact that, is your concern with the multi-use element, period? Or is it simply because this happens to be in your words, a difficult process or a difficult event to manage?
That's an excellent question. I would be opposed to the rezoning of that lot into an apartment complex. Absolutely. I think it's inconsistent with the whole Main Street, environment and the commercial use and trying to bring professionals, eye doctors, dentists, CPAs, professionals into that Main Street area. And to put in an apartment complex, I don't think would be the right use either. So I would be opposed to that regardless. Do I think this particular population is of more concern? Based on the fact that they are in a transitional state, would my tenants have more concern? I don't office there. My tenants do. They have concerns. They have concerns, so I have concerns. They feel less safe. I don't think there's going to be supervision at night. I think that the potential for problems is greater. As a protected class, I don't know if, I'm not familiar with the law enough to know whether there's a requirement that there be supervision for, would you have, I think in an office building, to have random apartments in the middle of an office building is never going to be the right thing. So honestly, as I really think about it, I think I would be opposed, no matter who you had living in individual units of an office building. I think it's not good for it's not consistent with the neighborhood.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Your tenants, the building near to the west, what are their operational hours? What is the latest, for instance, that they stay in the evening? And what are their operational, for the most part? I'm sure that each one is a little different, but.
Well, we have one that has been there in the evening, and she has a counseling business, but she is leaving.
I'm sorry?
She is leaving. She's moving
leaving.
out. We have an engineer. We
Okay.
have Cable One. We have Mountain. We have the transportation companies.
Do you
So-
know what their operational hours are? Like, what is the earliest and what is the latest?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I have to say I don't know. And we're, our tenants aren't perfect by any stretch. I mean, no, you do the best you can.
Yeah.
But I think you have to look at the overall quality, meaning the quality of the street and the use, which is zone commercial. If it were zoned residential, I wouldn't be up here.
But
No.
in a sense, it's a mixed, it's not zoned non-commercial, non-residential either,
It's zone commercial,
Downtown.
but it's downtown commercial.
downtown commercial.
And as Mr. Tagaska said, that is a blending. It
Well,
doesn't,
no, it isn't. It's downtown commercial, but the what do you call it? The plan, the
The Tahito plan or?
HEDO plan which is not hard zoning, was something that they looked at some years ago, but it's not part of the zoning. That's why this requires a conditional use permit. The zoning is downtown commercial. So it's not zoned residential at this time. So you're looking, it'd be like me coming in and saying, I want to put an industrial building on my commercial site. I want to put in an industrial warehouse distribution, or I want to put a welding shop in an office space.
And Mr. Chair, perhaps I can clarify. In any zoning district, there's essentially three categories of uses. There's things that are absolutely permitted. There's things that are absolutely prohibited. And then there are things that kind of fall in the middle. And that was what's considered a conditional use. And each zoning district will list what is a permitted use. And we've got pages of them, and some of them are, to be honest, a little goofy. And then we have, lists of conditional uses. Things that may be okay, they may not be okay. And so they require a higher level of review. That's why we're here tonight, because apartments are listed as a conditional use in the downtown commercial zoning district.
What is it titled under? I mean, I see nursing homes, but in hotels.
Under
and
conditional
hotels.
uses, it's in between miniature golf and music studios. It's multiple family dwellings, up to
Oh, there
10.
it is, okay.
Okay.
And like I said, some of them are goofy. Miniature golf, goofy golf. I don't know that we'll see that ever in the downtown commercial, but it's listed here, so.
Thank you
Any
for
other
the
questions?
input, appreciate it very much. Further questions? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is anybody else out there who is, Doctor, would you please come forward and state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, I'm David Halls. I own the building immediately to the east of the building in subject, and I was wondering if I could put in a miniature golf. I've had a lot of Mr. Bevel's clients that I've treated professionally, and I've talked a lot with them about their program, about, we get into detailed questions about their histories, and I've been impressed with their desires for change, as well as the confidence that they have in Mr. Bevel. So that's allayed a lot of my fears concerning having that next to me. And professionally, I understand completely what some of the concerns have been expressed. I bought the building a year ago and was excited that we could not renew the lease on the labor force, where the temporary workers would come and hang out in our parking lot, and the girls that work for me would feel uncomfortable coming to work early in the morning and have them just hanging out there. So I understand it doesn't have to be a break-in. It doesn't have to be domestic violence that can severely depress a building tenant's desire to be there. And so men loitering around presents a problem to businesses in the area. Personally, for me, I would recommend, I don't vote like you guys do, but I would recommend approving it with the option of being able to revisit it in the future. I was wondering, I have a question, how long can that conditional use permit be revoked? I know they have a 6-month, we said, and a 12-month revision or review. In 3 years, if we find it's a problem, can it still be revoked at that point, or has it been set in stone?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may.
The way that the staff recommendation is written, and again, it's very rare for us to put in a mandatory review period on a conditional use permit. The way that the staff recommendation is written is that we would see this back 6 months from when they start the residential occupancy. So if it was approved tonight, it wouldn't be 6 months from tonight. It would be 6 months from when they actually complete the improvements and have people move in. That would be followed after an additional 6 months, so 12 months from the date that they move in. Those would be just the recommended review times for this body to have a mandated look at it. The commission can look at something at any time, whether it's 2 weeks or 20 years, to see, does it have that impact that we're discussing this evening, and that people obviously are very, very concerned about. So it doesn't have to be at the 6 months and at the 12 months. It could be at any period that they are operating.
Very good. We have a home like this being proposed in our residential neighborhood in Pine Top. Nobody wants it anywhere.
Mhm.
The worst place for it to be is wherever your property is.
Mhm.
And so I don't know that we can say that there's a good place, a perfect place for it. There's not a lot of kids wandering around. I think it's as good a place as any, but, as long as and I think that they can do a good job with the clients that they have in instructing them as to proper behavior, and I have confidence in them to do that, and hopefully we'll see that.
Thank you, sir.
Earl?
I have questions for staff again. The point of diminished property values was brought up in some of these letters, and I think I recall reading something somewhere that is a factor that we cannot take into consideration with the city. Is that true, or is that something about city council? Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I crazy?
The things that are specifically called out are those things that, I've already mentioned.
Okay.
The way that it's worded, it does not specifically say property values. What it says is no significant adverse or intrusive effect upon property within 300 feet of the external boundaries, and the proposed change would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the persons or property in the surrounding area, nor to the community in general.
I just remember reading something, it may have been from city council, about being liable for making decisions that would negatively impact property values.
I think what you're referring to is the Proposition 207 waiver.
Okay.
A number of years ago, the voters of Arizona approved what was called Prop 207. That part of that proposition is that government entities are liable for decisions that they make that affect property values for the people that make the application. That's why we got the Prop 207 waiver. So if we decide to grant this, or if the commission decides to grant this, and in a month, Mr. Hall has somebody show up and say, I'd pay you $1 million for this property, except you got this in there. We couldn't, as a city, be financially liable for the decision that you made this evening.
Okay.
So that may be what you're referring to.
To the applicant.
To the applicant, yeah.
And the other question I had too is, you have a 6-month review in here. Would there be any significant negative impact on staff if we reviewed it 3 months from the time that they started living in those facilities rather than 6 months?
What you see before you are just staff recommendations. Certainly, the commission can look at those, and if they so choose, can amend those one way or the other. So I've been through this about 174 times. It won't offend me if you decide to change some staff recommendations.
Okay.
Done it a couple of times. Any further input from the public? Okay. Any further questions for staff or for the applicants? Okay, then I will bring it back to the commission at this point. We'll for a motion. Commissioner Bishop.
I move to approve CUP 602-04-187 submitted by Shane Hall of ST Hall Investments LLC to allow rehabilitation housing at 1201 East Cooley, that being APN 210-27-001A, 002B, 003C, 004D, 005E, 006F, 007G, 008H, 009I, and 010J, subject to staff recommendations with an amendment that this come back to review with the Planning and Zoning Commission 3 months from when the first resident starts residing there.
And then again, it's 6 months and
Yes,
then again.
correct.
Okay.
So I'm just adding one additional, not
Okay.
taking any out.
I
Have you
second
got that, Ms. Egan? Okay,
I second that.
all right. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have a unanimous 4-member consensus. I want to thank everybody for their input. We wish the applicant nothing but the greatest success, and we would love nothing more than to find out that the property values in the neighborhood went up because of what you guys have been able to do. So thank everybody for their input. We really do appreciate it. And so that pretty much handles it for the public. Well, I take it back. You got to do your disclaimer.
Standard disclaimer, with any conditional use permit, there is a 7-day appeal period. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within those 7 days, the conditional use permit will be considered effective.
Okay.
Should I go retrieve Mr. Adams?
Pardon me? Yes, I guess we should go get Mr. Adams. shouldn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a long
He's
time.
asleep. Wake him gently.
Oh, he's walking in.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
All right. I think that we would, at this point, we normally have our call to the public for any input on issues which weren't a topic of discussion this evening. If there are none, then I will dispense with the reading of the boilerplate. And seeing none, we will move forward. You may.
I drove up here. For years, we've tried to get a street sign that says Cooley on White Mountain Boulevard. There's no street sign, and we finally got one that hung, and then someone stole it. So I would just like to go on record to say, we've been asking for a street sign for 20 years, I think, and so far, no street sign. And in the meantime, down over here by the government buildings, you guys get all the lights and everything. And we get light poles that never get lights on them. They never finish the main street that we help pay for. Anyway, so just love for somebody to take a look at that.
Well, you're talking to the right guy.
Thank
20
you.
years.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm glad I came up just for that.
We're glad to have you. Okay, that brings us, you may. Yes, ma'am, you may. I think that brings us to the approval of Planning and Zoning Commission study session minutes from January 26th. Can I have a motion to so approve? It's about time you did something tonight. Thank you. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, okay. So the study session minutes are approved, and we need to approve the minutes from the regular meeting, the 26th as well. Can I have a motion, please?
I am.
All right, multiple seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes so approved. Summary of current events. Besides doing the plumbing work on this place, what are you gonna do?
No, just enjoying the beautiful weather. So, reminding everybody to be careful out there.
Yep. Commissioner Bishop?
I'm just hanging tight, waiting for all this election mess to end and get back on our lives next year. So,
I have said that I didn't know whether, I would- after the vote, didn't know whether I was going to commit suicide or go bowling, both of which I would consider to be the same thing. So anyway, Commissioner Barron,
Nothing this evening.
Vice Chair Robertson.
Just wish everybody a happy Easter celebration next week. Be safe, enjoy your kids, and hope everybody voted today that was registered for primary.
Everybody that could.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Likewise, I want everybody to be really careful. As good as the weather has been out there, the kids are out in force, and I know I wouldn't say I've had a couple of near misses, but I've stopped a couple of kids in our neighborhood on bikes saying, you need to be careful. And so watch for the kids. And Mr. Tregaskis.
Just a couple things. The city held some events in conjunction with the more of the fun side of Easter. Hair-raising activities, I think we call them, very successful. I would like to give kudos to city staff and to all those parents who brought their kids and attended that. Also, during spring break, our swimming pool was extremely popular. We had, I think, over 1,000 people visit the pool during that week. So again, good job by the Aquatic Center staff to accommodate those number of people.
Been tough moving around in there.
They weren't there all at one time. It was spread out throughout the
Okay.
week,
All
but
right,
yes.
I got you. Thank you for that.
And then I'll just leave it at that. So thank you.
I would like seconds, though. I took my grandson, I went with my grandson and my children to the hair-raising event. It was so much fun. The kids really had a great time. My grandson's only 2.5, but the candy was galore, and he was just picking it up and putting it, he had a great time. It was so much fun.
Good. Okay, anything further? All right, we will consider this meeting adjourned. Yes. I figure if I hang around here long enough, you'll come in with a butch.
Upstairs, yeah.